I'm wondering, during your tenure at HBO, and even now, are there certain practices that nourish your attunement in listening to what is really true for you, whether it's decision making on projects, taking on projects, or just really in your personal experience of consciousness?
Mm-hmm. Well, I have a lot of practices, a lot of spiritual practices that I do all the time. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. Yes. Now, the other part of the question is picking projects and mm-hmm. developing projects and things like that, which is, I think, an offshoot of
yes.
the foundational work, which is what are the practices that I actually do personally. You know,
sure.
So I mean, as an example, one thing that I do and I've done every day for, let's see, over 5 years now, mm-hmm. is the first thing I do when I wake up, before I have breakfast, before I do anything, is I meditate for an hour. Okay? I also read the Course in Miracles, I read other things. I do all of this first thing in the morning, right? So it's like getting out of bed, I'm getting out on the right foot.
Yes.
And, you know, even before I went to doing a full hour meditation, I was doing meditation in the morning before anything, for years before that. Mm-hmm. So that's one that's been a long time journey for me, right? You know, I do other things. I fast every Monday.
Every Monday?
Every Monday, from the time I stop eating on Sunday to after I finish my practices on Tuesday morning.
Right.
I only do water.
Yeah.
Right? And so...
How long have you been doing that?
That's been over 5 years now.
And, I mean, I can imagine what some of the effects are, but mm-hmm. for you and your... how has that nourished your sense of authenticity and being aligned?
God, that's one of the most profound practices. I would recommend it for anybody, because if you really want to find out what's down in there, like emotionally and all that, take the food away for a minute and see what comes up. Because I used to go to the office. I used to have meetings, lunch meetings, where I would sit and not eat. You know, I'd be on location, you know, in fabulous restaurants with like, you know, the showrunners and everybody, and I'm just sitting there, you know, with my water. And it's like, you want to find out, you know, I think there's sort of it takes a bit of will to be able to do that, because you begin to learn how much eating is an emotional thing.
Yes.
And, you know, the things that trigger and wanting to stuff feelings down with food, and if you're able to just let those things come out and come up to the light, then it's a really powerful learning experience.
I can imagine.
Yeah. It's also, Monday is a very powerful day metaphysically to just receive energy, because it's you know, in English we've sort of lost this, but the days of the week, if you go to a Latin-based language or Spanish or something, you see, you know, lunes is moon day, martes is Mars, you know, they're all, you know what I mean, they're all ruled by a planet.
Yes.
Miracle is Mercury. You know, so you get energies that come in each day of the week, that if you respect them, this goes back to your attunement question. It's like, if you can attune yourself with the natural rhythms of the universe, then you have a more harmonious existence.
Sure.
So that's one way that, you know, I feed myself on Mondays by fasting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're really moving in concert with the natural energies of our existence and the whole, you know, our whole, I mean, of all of existence, really, rather than moving against it, but just really. But the other thing you mentioned, as far as like, you know, I mean, food is such a process of escaping. You know, stuffing, you know, avoidance and so forth. So, yeah, I imagine it's almost like an emotional purge, right? That happens because you're taking away all the vices of avoiding.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, you know, the food thing, I think that another powerful thing in terms of like attunement that I've sort of engaged in is cleaning out, you know, purifying my diet and my body, and what that means to me is you know, no refined sugar, or at least tiny amounts of anything you know, on a birthday or something, you know, no caffeine, no red meat, you know, no medications of any sort. I haven't had Tylenol since 2003 probably, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And so it's like, the more that I've sort of removed that kind of stuff, I think it's helped me to stay open to those subtle energies that we're talking about.
So intuition goes back to the intuition. You're able to listen and feel for what's real more so, because unnatural substances are not getting in the way of that.
That's exactly what it is. It's like the, you know, like the alcohol and drinking and drugs kind of thing, you know. It's like, it's not the best thing to put in your body if you're wanting to really hear that inner voice, because it messes with your pineal gland. It does all kinds of things that really aren't conducive to being attuned.
Right.
You know, and people famously use that kind of thing to shut down intuition, to shut down those things, you know, that maybe are a little scary for them to feel because they don't know how to deal with them. So
So going back to how you discerned my question into the two parts, right? So these are the personal practices that you engage in to attune and to fine tune your listening. How do you feel as though these personal practices have influenced and affected, for example, the way in which you interacted and took on the projects at HBO, for example?
Well, it's a little different when you're a buyer at a network, because I mean, I had a bank account that I could, you know, buy stuff with. So the projects came in a little different way because a lot of people were selling them to me. I think it's more interesting now how projects come to me, because I'm really now in a sort of a more creative, flowing place, and letting stuff come to me. You know, through channels that I don't claim to know anything about. But you know, even one of them just happened today. You know, and it's these things reveal themselves in front of me, and much like I said in the movie Yes Man, it's about saying yes to things. It's funny, I said something in the car to Stephanie today as we were driving back from this meeting. I said, rarely have I done anything that was worth doing that didn't scare the crap out of me in the beginning. You know what I mean?
It's great, yeah.
It's like, that's just...
It's almost like a litmus, it's like a test, right?
Yeah, it's like, is this something I really, you know, did I make this up, or did this come to me, and is it something that I feel like I have to do, or am I going to have to tap into a force greater than me to have this happen through me? You know what I mean? Because as long as I think that I'm the one that's doing it, or I'm the one that's in charge of doing it, it's never gonna take off, and it's always gonna be scary. But as soon as I can get out of the way of it and let whatever put it there use me as a vehicle to do it, then everything works out. And I look back on it and say, wow, how did I do that? You know, I think the Edgar Casey project is very much an example of this whole thing we're talking about. You know, just the way it came to me, the things that happened around it, and now you know what's been revealed through it. So. So pretty much what I'm saying is that part two of the question is, I'm actually just now a receptive space for things to fall into, and then I say yes to them. You know, and the things that are relevant don't become anything, or they fall away. You know, my only job is to move forward. When something comes to me, I'll move forward on it, and then if it sticks, then it sticks. You know. Interestingly enough, I want to say that a full circle in this conversation is from 15 years old reading Alan Watts to getting a phone call from Alan Watts' son asking me if I wanted to direct a movie about Alan Watts. So it's like, yes, of course. And who would have thought all those years ago that this is what would have happened?
Well, I must say, I mean, it goes back to all the practices, you know, that you just shared with us about of clearing what gets in the way of listening to that attunement. And also, you know, the more you listen, you know, the more you become aware and kind of the subtle messages of the invitations, you know, whether it's a project or you know, just which direction to go. So I really, you know, want to acknowledge you for your personal practices and how that's led to, you know, opportunities like this where it has come full circle. Can you? I mean, you've shared with me the story, but I'd love for you to share how that project came about.
Well, it was sort of a long journey in the sense that I was a huge fan of Alan Watts for a long time, and I moved to Los Angeles, and then a friend of my brother's was working with Alan's son, Mark, and do you want to meet this friend, and then do you want to meet Mark? And I ended up meeting, so this was like years, this has probably been 7-8 years now, or longer, I don't know. And I got to know Mark, and we were just friends, and we talked, and we philosophized, and and one day, it was actually like 2 days, or the day after I left HBO, I get the phone call from Mark, and he says, hey, I'm ready to do the film about my father. And I said, well, maybe I can help you. Like, how can I help you find a director or something like that? He says, well, I was kind of hoping you would do it. And I was floored because I hadn't really considered that. Yeah. And of course, as I said yes. Yes. Of course, I'll do it. And we've been on this journey now for a while, putting that together, and it's been really amazing. And not the least of which is just the fact that I've gotten to go through like so much of the archives of Alan's stuff and things that nobody's ever seen before or heard before, which is just a treat in and of itself.
Sure.
If that were the only thing that happened, it would be such a huge blessing.
Totally. I so love that.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Everything becomes relevant at some point. It is the strangest thing. It is the strangest thing. I mean, and now I'm at the point in my life where I'm looking at all the things that I've done and saying, okay, well, these are all going to become relevant at some point. Now I just don't. Now I get to have the fun of watching and seeing how
it unfolds.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very exciting. It's like, it's like waiting for the adventure, and knowing the adventure is going to unfold, but not knowing how. That's the excitement of it.
I don't get to be in on that part. But, I think maybe part of this conversation is not just about attuning and hearing the message, but then being willing to follow through on it.
Sure.
Like I said to you, it's scary. I mean, sometimes it's like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I've had things where people have called me and asked me to do stuff. I've said, there's no reason in the world I would do this, but I'll do it just because it's being asked of me. So something is being wanted here. And, those have turned out to be some pretty interesting adventures.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it is about hearing and then moving.
Yes.
That's really what I'm getting now.
I need to ask you to share at least one of those adventures.
Oh boy.
That where it didn't make any sense to say, yeah, okay, right? And yet, the invitation was there, and so you made the leap.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so many. Let's see.